Pushing my shopping cart through the supermarket parking lot, I was contemplating the menu for our weekend family dinner. Should I make salmon meunière, Amy's favorite, or Lily's beloved lasagna? In the end, I decided to make both. Lately, family time had become more precious to me than ever. While selecting fresh salmon at the Whole Foods fish counter, I suddenly felt tears welling up in my eyes. It's been 3 years since I lost my husband. Memories of him still strongly move my heart from time to time. But for me, living alone, weekend dinners with my daughter's family and granddaughter have become a new hope in life. Especially 8-year-old Lily, who's like a little angel. Her clear eyes and innocent smile heal my heart. Just thinking about her piano recital still warms my heart. At last month's recital, Lily performed a Chopin waltz. Though her fingers trembled slightly from nervousness, her profile as she played through to the end looked just like her mother. I can still vividly recall Amy's expression, smiling with tears in her eyes from the audience. Amy had quit teaching when she married a university professor, but she beautifully balanced the intelligence she cultivated at Harvard with her gentleness as a mother. "Grandma, I can play this piece now too." After her lesson, Lily excitedly showed me her new sheet music. Mozart's Sonata. Though it looked a bit difficult, her eyes were full of confidence. As Amy reached for her smartphone to capture the moment, she suddenly grimaced. "What's wrong?" I asked, and she replied, "Just a bit dizzy," as she leaned against the wall. Her face was paler than I'd ever seen it. The following week, Amy underwent tests at Massachusetts General Hospital, where her husband Robert worked. Robert greeted us in the waiting room with his usual gentle expression. However, when he announced the diagnosis of an aortic aneurysm, there was an unfamiliar coldness in his voice. "Surgery would be unavoidable," he said. "Don't worry, Mom," Amy squeezed my hand. "Robert is the best cardiac surgeon. I'll be better soon." Her hand was cold and trembling. After starting the medication Robert prescribed, her condition rapidly deteriorated. Still, she desperately tried to cherish her time with Lily. Picnics in Boston Common, baking cookies in the kitchen, bedtime stories, as if savoring every moment of time left. When Lily begged, "Mama, let's go to the park again," Amy would nod with a pained expression. Every time I saw that, my heart ached. The night before surgery, Amy suddenly called. Rain had started falling outside. "Mom, please take care of Lily." Her voice was filled with unusual tension. As if she knew something. "Amy, it'll be all right. The surgery will definitely succeed." "Yes, right." She hesitated for a moment. "Mom, thank you. Thank you so much." Her voice seemed to come from a distant place. After hanging up, I was struck by an indescribable anxiety. On the day of surgery, when we arrived at Massachusetts General Hospital, the sky was still dark. Only the smell of disinfectant lingered in the early morning hallway. On the long bench in front of the ICU, Lily slept quietly on my lap. Her small sleeping face contrasted sharply with her anxious mother's expression. Amy kept checking the time, pacing restlessly around the waiting room. "Good morning, Margaret." I turned to find Robert standing there with a perfect smile. A brilliant cardiac surgeon who graduated top of his class from Harvard Medical School and became chief surgeon at just 38, he was universally recognized as excellent. Dressed in pristine surgical scrubs, he looked like an ideal doctor straight out of a movie. He explained the surgical procedure. Head nurse Jane Morrison approached with a warm smile. "The surgery preparations are complete," she began to say something to Amy, but when Robert cleared his throat, she hurriedly left. "Mama, are you scared?" Lily, now awake, asked Amy, who had changed into surgical garments. "It's okay, Lily," Amy smiled. "It'll be over soon. Stay with Grandma until then." But behind that smile, I sensed an indescribable sadness. Amy said goodbye to each of us. Finally, as she held Lily tightly, her hands trembled slightly. The embrace lasted longer than usual, as if she wanted to remember her daughter's warmth forever. "I love you, Lily. Forever and ever." Those words had a somehow final ring to them. Before heading to the operating room, Amy paused for a moment and looked back at me. There was something pleading in her eyes. She started to say something, but when Robert lightly touched her shoulder from behind, she bit her lip and fell silent. She only gave a faint wave. 3 hours had passed since the surgery began. The clock in the waiting room seemed unnaturally loud. Lily was absorbed in her coloring book, but her small hand would occasionally pause anxiously with the crayon. Every time she mumbled, "I wonder if Mama's done yet." My heart tightened. In the surgical ward hallway, nurses were bustling about. Among them, only Nurse Jessica Bright stood out for walking with an oddly calm demeanor. Every time she came out of the operating room, she would check her smartphone and seemed to be sending messages somewhere. Suddenly, the red light above the operating room went out. A heavy silence enveloped the waiting room. The door opened, and Robert appeared in his surgical garb. When I saw his expression, my heart nearly stopped. "We did everything we could. There was nothing more we could do." Those words sounded theatrical, as if they had been prepared in advance. They even had a somewhat dismissive and relieved tone. "No." My voice was so hoarse I barely recognized it as my own. "Amy died. That can't be." As nurses rushed about in confusion, I felt the world slipping away. Lily remained silent, tears welling up in her large eyes. At that moment, head nurse Jane passed by with a deeply sorrowful expression. Her eyes held an indescribable anguish. Walking down the white hallway, I felt like I was in a dream. My hand holding Lily's small one was ice cold. We passed Jessica Bright on the way. She quickly turned away, but I noticed the strange absence of any tears in her eyes. The corridor to the morgue was unnaturally quiet. Fluorescent lights cast bluish shadows on the walls. Our shadows stretched eerily in that light. That's when it happened. Lily suddenly stopped. Her small body was trembling. "Lily." She stared into empty space with an expression as if she'd seen a ghost. Then, in a trembling voice, she whispered, "Mama's saying, don't trust Papa." Those words rang out like they were cutting through the hospital's cold air. An icy chill ran down my spine. Though Lily's voice was small, its meaning shook my heart like thunder. As the hallway's fluorescent lights flickered ominously, Lily's trembling voice seemed to echo off the walls. At that moment, something definitively crumbled within my heart. Everything I had believed in seemed to collapse like sand. A sense that all that had been certain was dissolving. I looked up at the empty space. There seemed to be a terrible truth swirling there, invisible to the eye. Massachusetts General Hospital's enormous building suddenly felt like a labyrinth harboring dark secrets. The autumn twilight visible through the windows was stained blood red. Someone was waiting for us beyond the morgue doors. But by now, I had lost the courage to go there. The reality of having to identify my daughter's body was too cruel. And now, Lily's words cast a new shadow of horror over that cruelty. I held the trembling Lily tightly. The warmth from her small body felt like the only certain reality in this surreal situation. "It's okay, Lily. I will definitely find the truth." I couldn't finish those words. Something hot welled up in my throat. The funeral was held at a small church in suburban Boston. Cold autumn rain fell continuously, as if the heavens too were shedding tears. Among the attendees, only Lily was unnaturally quiet. She stared straight ahead, rigid like a doll. Robert performed perfectly as the chief mourner, but there was something off about his gestures. Like a well-rehearsed scene from a play. Many staff members from Massachusetts General Hospital attended. Among them, only head nurse Jane's expression seemed different. She kept looking our way, but would quickly avert her gaze when our eyes met. And Jessica Bright was nowhere to be found. A week after the funeral, as autumn trees began to change color, Lily's behavior started changing day by day. "Grandma, I want to go to Mama's room." I hesitated at those words. Amy's belongings were still untouched. But something in Lily's serious expression suggested important meaning. Amy and Robert's house stood in a quiet residential area of Newton. A two-story white colonial-style house. From the outside, it looked like a symbol of the perfect family. But now, that exterior felt like a false mask. "No one will come, right?" Lily anxiously looked around. I shook my head. Robert had said he wouldn't be home until late due to emergency surgery at the hospital. Entering Amy's bedroom, a faint trace of her perfume still lingered. An unfinished book lay on the bed. That scene made her sudden death feel even more unreal. Lily went straight to the back of the closet without hesitation. From behind her mother's shoebox, she pulled out an old teddy bear. Mama's special treasure. Lily's small hand reached for the zipper on the teddy bear's back. When she opened it, a small voice recorder appeared. My hands trembled. When we played the recording, Amy's voice quietly flowed out. It was filled with sadness and determination. "This might be my last message. But I must tell the truth. Amy's accusations far exceeded our imagination. First, she spoke about Robert's debt. $2 million. His gambling stakes at casinos grew day by day. Then the insurance fraud planned to repay the debt. And the affair with a young nurse. One horrifying truth after another was revealed behind the perfect doctor's mask. I accidentally saw his emails. The exchanges with Jessica about handling it. The recording continued. Amy had realized her illness was fabricated. The medication Robert prescribed had gradually poisoned her body. And the final surgery. It was the perfect stage for murder. But I have evidence. Robert probably doesn't realize, but I've made copies of everything, the data on his computer, emails, and hospital records. Amy explained in detail where she had hidden the evidence. Under the floor in the study at home, in the library's return box, and in the head nurse's safe. Everything had been meticulously planned. Mom, protect Lily. He's not the Robert we used to know anymore. Her final words echoed heavily in the room. I held the trembling Lily tightly. At that moment, we heard the front door open downstairs. Robert's footsteps, home earlier than expected, came up the stairs. We froze, listening to the sound. The footsteps were definitely approaching Amy's bedroom. Lily's small body trembled even more strongly. I quickly returned the voice recorder to its place and closed the closet. Then, carrying Lily, I slipped into the adjacent bathroom. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Is someone there? Robert's voice resonated, lower than usual. We waited, holding our breath. The twilight streaming through the bathroom's small window cast eerie shadows. Lily buried her face in my chest. A few seconds felt like eternity. Eventually, there was a sound like a sigh, and the footsteps retreated downstairs. We couldn't move from that spot for a while longer. That night, back at my house, Lily showed a peaceful sleeping face for the first time in a while. Alone in the dark living room, I planned our next actions. Retrieve Amy's hidden evidence and submit it to the police. But before that, I picked up the phone and quietly dialed a number. Hello, Jane. We need to talk. On the other end, the head nurse let out a deep sigh. Yes, I wanted to talk to you too. Amy entrusted something to me at the end. The conference room at Boston Police Headquarters was bathed in early morning sunlight. Detective Jim Collins of the Criminal Investigation Division silently took notes of my and head nurse Jane's testimonies. His experienced eyes reflected the unprecedented gravity of this case. So Dr. Parker had a complete murder plan. He spoke as if weighing each word. Medical murder for insurance fraud. And the evidence. Yes, Jane quietly answered. Amy left a USB drive in my safe. It contains all the data proving Robert's crimes. She placed the USB drive she had retrieved from the safe on the table. That small device contained the truth about what had taken my daughter's life. Cybercrime division experts were mobilized to analyze the data. Evidence emerged one after another. Enormous gambling debts at casinos. Threatening emails from loan sharks. And photos proving the affair with Jessica Bright, along with email exchanges planning the insurance fraud. The falsified diagnosis dates back 3 months, explained the Cybercrime Division analyst. Dr. Parker had skillfully altered the electronic medical records. However, Amy had backed up the original data. The evidence built a perfect timeline. Amy's rapid health deterioration was caused by the drugs Robert had prescribed. Even the intentional medical errors during surgery were all recorded. We've also secured the operating room security camera footage, the detective spread out documents. We can confirm unusual movements between Dr. Parker and Nurse Bright during surgery, especially during drug administration. However, the most decisive evidence was Amy's own recorded accusation. Her calm voice filled the conference room. "I know my death is near. But this is neither an accident nor illness. This is murder." Those words froze the air in the room. "The insurance payment is scheduled for 10 a.m. tomorrow," said the detective. "Dr. Parker has booked flights to the Cayman Islands with Nurse Bright immediately after." An arrest plan was formulated. Arresting them at the airport would be too dangerous. But if arrested before receiving the insurance money, they would surely resist. "We'll stake out the insurance company office." After covering all exits and ensuring civilian safety. Just then, a young officer burst into the conference room. "Dr. Parker is trying to leave the country right now." The conference room erupted in chaos. Had the schedule been moved up? A line of police cars raced through Boston streets with sirens blaring. I was allowed to ride in a police vehicle. Through the window, I could see Charles River glittering in the morning sun. Arriving at Logan Airport, the scene was already in chaos. Robert and Jessica were surrounded in front of a private jet hangar. Robert maintained an elegant smile until the end. However, Jessica's expression began to crumble. "I didn't." As she began to speak in a trembling voice, Robert grabbed her arm, attempting to take her hostage. At that moment, Robert's movement stopped at the police officer's simultaneous aim. His perfect mask slowly crumbled. The sound of handcuffs echoed in the morning mist. 2 weeks after the arrest, all truths were revealed in the courtroom. The prosecutor presented vast evidence. Falsified diagnoses. Altered surgical records. Insurance fraud evidence. And most importantly, Amy's recording was played in court. "This will be my final testimony. After my death, I hope this truth will come to light." That voice silenced the entire courtroom. Hospital staff in the gallery wept. Head nurse Jane stared straight ahead. Robert's lawyer tried every possible defense. But before the weight of evidence, all was futile. Jessica agreed to a plea deal and admitted to being an accomplice. Her testimony further sealed Robert's guilt. Robert Parker was sentenced to life imprisonment for first-degree murder and insurance fraud. Jessica Bright received a 20-year prison sentence through the plea agreement. Leaving the courthouse, I remembered Amy's last words. "Mom, the truth will surely come to light. Please, take care of Lily." When I returned home, Lily was waiting for me. "Papa won't come back anymore." "No," I embraced my granddaughter. "But Mama is watching over us." A tear rolled down Lily's cheek. But it seemed like a tear of relief after a long battle, rather than one of sadness. In our new home in Newton, bathed in spring sunlight, Lily was opening moving boxes. 6 months after the incident, we were about to start a new life. This house, purchased with Amy's insurance money, overlooked the Charles River from a small hill. "Grandma, where should I put this?" Lily carefully held her mother's photo frame. "Let's see." I pointed to the shelf by the window. "That's a good spot where Mama can always watch over us." Jane, the head nurse, had come to help with the move. After the incident, she had been working on reforms at Massachusetts General Hospital. Prevention systems for medical errors, establishment of an ethics committee, and most importantly, rebuilding trust among staff members. "The changes Amy hoped for are gradually becoming reality," Jane said while sipping coffee. "Her courage will end up saving many lives." Lily attended counseling once a week. Dr. Sarah Watson, a specialist in children with trauma, patiently supported her recovery. "Lily is a very strong child," Dr. Watson told me. "She's not just grieving her mother's death, but trying to understand its meaning. That's unusual for her age." At school, Lily gradually rebuilt relationships with her friends. Initially, we worried she might be bullied because her father had been arrested for murder. However, with appropriate guidance from her teacher, Mr. Brown, her classmates showed remarkable compassion. "Mama tried to protect people from bad people, right?" Lily said suddenly one day. "Yes, that's right," I hugged my granddaughter. Mama was very brave. Time flowed on, and seasons changed. Lily entered middle school and excelled particularly in science classes. She showed an especially strong interest in biology and chemistry, spending her after-school hours absorbed in experiments in the science club. "I want to become a doctor in the future," Lily declared when she turned 15, which surprised me a bit. "But not like Papa. I want to protect the lives that Mama tried to protect." Those words deeply moved me. Tragedy was transforming into new hope. Perhaps this was what Amy would have wanted. 10 years passed, and Lily achieved her goal of entering medical school. On her matriculation day, she made a vow in front of her mother's photo. "Mama, watch me. I promise I'll become a good doctor." Meanwhile, Robert's life as an inmate was harsh. The weight of his life sentence had completely erased any trace of the once brilliant cardiac surgeon. Refusing all visitors, his hair turned white, and his eyes became vacant. After serving her 20-year sentence, Jessica began living quietly in a rural Iowa town. Having lost her nursing license, she worked part-time at a convenience store, spending her days repenting for past sins. Massachusetts General Hospital changed significantly after this incident. The new management system established under head nurse Jane's leadership became a model case for medical institutions across America. She later earned a doctorate in medical ethics and devoted herself to educating young medical professionals. 15 years after the incident, I attended Lily's graduation ceremony. In Harvard Medical School's auditorium, she graduated as valedictorian. Standing at the podium, with a smile just like her mother's, she began her speech. A doctor's mission is to protect people's lives and hope. My mother taught me this truth with her own life. From now on, I want to carry on my mother's will and save many lives as an honest and compassionate physician. The venue was filled with warm applause. That night, in our house by the Charles River, Lily and I gazed at her mother's photo. Outside the window, the full moon shone quietly. It was the same moonlight as that night 15 years ago when Amy's truth came to light. "Grandma, do you think Mama is proud of me?" "Yes, I'm sure she is," I smiled. "You'll become an even more wonderful doctor than Mama dreamed of." Tears glistened in Lily's eyes. They weren't tears of sadness, but rather the sparkle of determination and hope for a new life. Amy's will had surely been passed on to the next generation. Outside the window, a spring breeze blew gently. That wind seemed to heal the pain of the past and bring hope for the future. Our story was about to begin a new chapter.